This
Only that
conference will now be recorded.
it just started the recording, and yeah, some folks should be coming over from the previous session. So look, I gotta leave it at that, I guess. We should see those folks coming on.
Perfect, perfect. So last time we talked about equipping, and we looked at what your dream for your team is, or what your dream for your organization is, and who do you need on your team to execute on that dream. And then I gave you some homework that we called thought provokers, and I wanted to open with that briefly. Specifically, the second thought provoker was, in what ways have other people invested in your personal growth and helped you? And I was hoping you would share briefly some of those stories to let folks know how you've gotten to where you are today in your career. You all are currently muted. Mark, I believe we can just hit the space bar to unmute ourselves while we're talking, right?
Yes, that is correct.
So if someone wants to hop in, that would be great. I'd love to hear your stories.
I'll share. This is Melody.
Thank you, Melody.
So I've been an HR professional for almost 25 years, and I got my start working, was working in a long-term care facility in our area as an HR assistant. And we got a new corporate director, and she and I just instantly connected. And she said, you really need to get your HR certification. And so that really started my path. And she has and continues to be a mentor of mine and just exposed me to a lot of things. We went to several national SHRM conferences. Our state in Virginia, we have an awesome state conference. I've been on the planning committee of that. And so I just have very high regard for her because she took me under her wing. I was a very introverted individual. And so she really helped to get me out of my shell, so to say, and just helped me progress my career. And so I just owe her for all of that, really. And I tell her that all the time when I see her.
Excellent, excellent. Even on the bad days in HR, you tell her thank you?
I do, because we share stories.
Good, good. Well, thank you. I mean, so honestly, that person's investment in you has turned into a whole career path and a lifestyle for you for over 20 years now.
Yep, absolutely.
Someone else want to share their thoughts on that? Someone who took them under their wing? Come on, one more for me, please. Robin, you're unmuted. You want to jump in?
Sure, I will. Similarly to Melody, I had our chief operating officer. I've worked with her for 25 years or something like that. And when I first joined her HR team at a different provider, she took me under her wing. She taught me a lot, and more than just taking me under her wing, she challenged me. So she's a master delegator. She gave me projects and allowed me to kind of work my way through, but was there if I had questions or things like that. So I was able to take a number of projects and work through those, meet great providers and great resources such as UED and others that just really kind of, help guide your path along the way. So while Judy was a great mentor, she continues to be a great mentor. I still work with her today and things like that. I've also got to meet a lot of other great people that really helped, whether it's, again, through interactions, Ed, you're one of them, where, your book and different things like that, you just challenge me, and that's a beautiful thing.
Well, thank you for that. So, just from those two stories, and thank you both for sharing, I think we all know how powerful having a solid mentor can be. And sometimes you'll hear someone say, well, I want to be a mentor to give back, which is great. I think, too, that this idea of mentorship and equipping others can start really no matter where you're at on your career path right now. Maybe you're not at the apex of your career yet. That's okay. It doesn't mean you can't be a mentor. And so I think the whole topic last month of equipping others is really about giving them that leg up too. And Robin, I loved you used a great word, delegating. Where can we delegate to those around us, not dump on them, that's different, but truly give them projects that maybe are mundane for us because of where we're at, but would be a challenge for them and would help them learn, all the while freeing us up to do probably more strategic, more impactful types of things. So that's the real power of equipping when it comes to our ability to lead our team. So I want you to continue each month. We've got this homework, but I don't want you to just say, okay, well, that month is over and we're moving on from it. This series sort of builds on one another. And so we went from just talking about relationships to how do we develop others. Today, we're going to look a little more inward at ourselves. And we're going to talk about attitude. And I don't know about you, but when I think about attitude and someone says, well, you have an attitude. Well, yeah, we all have an attitude, right? The question is it good or bad? And that might depend on the day, depend on the time of day, and who we're interacting with. But what we're going to look at today is how our attitudes drive who we are, how they drive how we perform, and then ultimately how they drive how we lead our team. And that's really where making sure that our attitude, not that we're always bright and sunny all the time. I mean, we are human beings, we have our rhythms, but that we understand when we're in a bad rhythm. And is there a place or a person that we can go to say, hey, I'm being a jerk right now, give me a good smack and help me get out of this kind of thing, right? And so when we look, if you have not yet pulled down your handout, it is in the chat room here. Marcus kindly put 2 links there, one to the SHRM document and one to our handout for today. So I want you to look at the first quote that I put on the handout there. And the A, obviously, at the top does stand for attitude. So if you're filling in the blanks there, A is for attitude. But take a look at this quote. A happy person is not a person with a set of circumstances, but rather a person with a certain set of attitudes. And, when I first read that, I was kind of like, well, that's kind of obvious. But then I think, wait a minute. And I sat back and I really thought about it. And it occurred to me, I was doing some training with a client last week, and we got to talking about negative attitudes in the workplace. And we got to talking about people that complain all the time and the negaholics. And really, it's like, wait a minute, that comes down to their worldview, right? And so it was just an aha moment for me that what Hugh Downs is saying, that it really is the lens through which we view our circumstances that determines how we navigate through that particular challenge or that particular success as well, right? We can develop a pretty bad attitude from having a lot of success. And so I thought, I got to get this in here because it was kind of profound, and it did sort of hit me over the head last week. And so when we're looking at the challenges that we face as HR professionals and as leaders, I know, I've been in your shoes and for a long time as well. And I know it can get us down sometimes when the employees aren't happy because we're not giving them everything they want, and management's not happy because everything we want's costing too much, and we can't find the right people, and there's always training. I mean, it just goes on and on and on, right? And sometimes we feel like, well, we don't have anyone to go to. Who are we supposed to vent to? That's a great time for us to just, get our Zen moment on, take our deep breath, and say, okay, let's regroup here. Maybe I need a walk, I need a coffee, whatever it is. But taking a look at how we advance in our careers and how we help other people advance. If you look at the next list there, I've got a list of 5 things. And this is interesting. Psychologists have found that when people are being looked at for promotion, that company executives look at these 5 things. Anyone want to offer up what they think one of these things is? Any thoughts? Come on, you guys have all offered people promotions. What have you looked for?
Job performance.
I'm sorry?
Job performance.
Job performance. So let's throw that under number 2, and we want to call it skills. at their skills, right? And do they use their skills? Absolutely, Melody. How are they doing with their skill set? What else would we look at? Hey, Christina, good to see you.
Hey.
No other thoughts on what you would want to see in someone you were considering for a promotion?
I think you look at their attitude.
Thank you. We're talking about attitude. Yes. Yes. I'm like, okay, come on. Yes, let's throw that under number 3, attitude toward the company. Absolutely, attitude toward the company. Because if we have a bad attitude toward the company, right, we're probably not in the right situation to be considered for more responsibility. Christina, were you going to weigh in on something?
I was actually going to say it seems pretty obvious, but I think I was going to say attitude toward.
Okay, good, because we're going to put attitude under number 4 as well. Thank you. Attitude towards people. Okay. And so we think about how that person interacts with the environment around them. So what's their attitude towards the company? What's their attitude towards the people that they'll be working with or leading as well? Absolutely. We got 2 left, 1 and 5.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, Mark wants to jump in. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, Natalia had put in ambition, desire to learn, and communication skills.
Natalia, thank you. Yes, ambition, number 1. Ambition. Do we want to get somewhere? Are we fired up about our organization and the people and what we want to do and how we can do it, and we want to contribute? Thank you, thank you, thank you for that. So we've got 1 left. We got ambition, we got skills, we got attitude towards company, we got attitude towards people. What is the last one?
This is Sonia. I'm gonna throw something out there. I don't know if it's true, but I know it's happened for me. Is sometimes when we're looking to promote, we make an assumption that people want to move upwards, and sometimes they don't. So sometimes not understanding or not knowing their long-term plan, we put them in a position where they don't want to say no to us. So they take it, but they're unhappy. So something along the lines of, you know, they have to have the will, they have to be on board. I don't know if it's the last one, but it's something that I've come across in my personal life.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, it's a great one, Sonia. Thank you. I think it hits a couple of things, right? So what is our ambition? You know, some folks are great frontline employees, and that's all they want to be. And we need those folks, right? We need good, solid frontline employees. And then we get some folks who want to be, you know, solid mid-level managers, and they don't want to move up any further, and so on. And so, absolutely. And I think that one's ambition, I don't look at someone who says, I'm really happy in my job, I don't want to move forward, as someone who lacks ambition. I think that's the kind of person who recognizes what makes them happy and what keeps them satisfied. So Natalia says, is the last one flexible? We're getting there. You're really close. It's something toward excessive demands on time and energy. We're close. Sonia, you ringing in?
No, I think it's delayed. Sorry.
Okay. What is the title of today's session?
Is it attitude, Ed?
Oh my goodness gracious. Yes. Attitude toward excessive demands on time and energy. Okay. And so it's no surprise we've got 3 attitudes in there. But think about it. We know that as we move up the food chain, so to speak, you know, the jobs don't get easier, they get harder. And that's why we expect more from people. There is more of a time demand. I mean, think, your frontline people are probably not checking emails at night. They're not taking their laptops home, those kind of things that we all have to do. And so our energy can really take a hit. And so we have to think about that when we look at someone who we're promoting, or you have to look at that for yourself. If you're being considered for a position of additional responsibility, it's okay. Well, how is that going to restrict me in maybe my work-life situation? Maybe it's a reload and you're not sure you want to reload, those kinds of things. So ultimately, and you see that last sentence I've got there, is that when we look at it in terms of leadership, we've talked before that it's really not so much about the position, but your disposition, right? How you view it. Do you come at things with the proper attitude and the proper focus? So if you take a look on the next page, there is an attitude inventory. That's going to be some of your homework. Okay, we're not going to do that now. But what I would like you to, as you're asking yourself these questions, especially focus on number one, your ambition. Many of you are the top HR person in your organization. And that can sometimes put a lid on us a little bit. And like, oh, well, there's nowhere to go. And so, and I like it here. I don't think I want to leave my job. But so sometimes we can get stuck in a rut. And we do have to, the key word in that first question is, how do we evaluate our own ambition? What is it that's going to keep us fired up for our team? That's really what I look at when I view that question. So think about it in those terms. The second question, investing in your own skills, hey, you're here doing this, once a month, every Friday, something sort of outside the norm. You probably get so many things thrown at you, especially now with COVID-related things in the workplace and whatnot, and you get your legal topics. But this is something that's really designed just for you and your skill set. And I know I've said this in some of our previous sessions, but I feel like as HR folks, we let ourselves go sometimes. It's we're the cobblers who don't put shoes on our own kids kind of thing, because we don't take care of ourselves professionally. Tactically, we do. Knowledge, we do. But true professional development, whether it's leadership and those types of things, is really important for us. And then you look at 3, 4, and 5, and of course, they all have to deal with your attitude and your views around the company and people and your time and energy. And so, as we've done in the past, this is really a self-reflection. It's not something I'm going to ask you to share, but it really is important for you to take some quiet time and think about it. And so, let's talk about what we know about attitudes. So, look at the first statement there. Our attitude is a what? Anyone want to take a stab at that?
Could it be like a moment in time? Are you talking about a?
Sort of. Can you expand on that?
Well, attitudes change based on circumstance. So I didn't know if you were going for, it's only a moment in time. Could be different in 5 minutes when someone accepts a job. It could be different in 10 minutes when somebody gives me their resignation that they're leaving.
Uh-huh. Okay.
Is it a choice? Is it a choice?
Sonia, again, yes, attitude is a choice. Absolutely it is, right? We choose. So you were really close, Sandy, right? It is a moment that we make the choice. Like what lens am I going to view this challenge through? Is it the, oh man, again, are you kidding me? Okay, I look at, I coach 14 and under softball, right? Girls. And, they're, Sonia's smiling. She knows where I'm going with this. I've raised 3 girls. They're emotional, right? And so, at last night's game, I had a girl get 2 strikes on her. She didn't swing, and the tears start. I'm like, oh boy, here we go. So I called timeout. I pulled her out of the box. I talked to her. She took her deep breath. She still struck out. It's the last out of the inning, so I jog in. She's crying on the sidelines. The first thing I said to her was, you get 30 seconds. Cry, get it out, do what you got to do, but you're going back out in the field, and I need you to be focused when you get back on the field. So take your 30 seconds, get yourself in order, and then get back out there. And so that's been sort of the mantra of our team is you get 30 seconds. And I've asked them for the same, if I'm upset, give me 30 seconds, it'll pass. But give yourself that sort of deadline, if you will, to say, okay, I'm gonna vent, scream, bang my fist, whatever, and then it's just done. And now I've got to refocus and I've got to move on. Because if we don't and it starts to fester, that internal festering is what comes out as a poor attitude. And so, acknowledge your feelings. Absolutely. This is not about, quenching your feelings of being frustrated or angry or any of that stuff. But it really is about getting yourself in a position where you can say, okay, I've taken my deep breath. I am going to choose to view this in this light, and this is where I'm going to go with it. So ultimately, our attitude then really does determine our approach to life. And so think about the people that you interact with the most. Think about someone you enjoy spending time with. Why do you enjoy spending time with that person? Maybe it's a spouse, it's a good friend, it's a sibling, a child, whatever it happens to be, but why is it? Yes, if it's a relative, hopefully you really love them and obviously you want to spend time, but why? What does it come down to? And so often, I think it comes down to it's that person's attitude, and it's what they bring out in us, and hopefully we're bringing something out in them too. And that's what really starts impacting our approach to how we live our lives. Now, I know this is getting sort of existential here, but when you think about it, obviously we spend a lot of time at work and we bring work home with us. And if we can't find that, I hate to use that term balance, but if we can't find that focus and say, okay, I'm having a bad day at work and now I'm working at home because of COVID, and I'm going to walk out those doors and in 2 minutes be interacting with my spouse, somewhere there's got to be a switch, right? That we say, okay, how I'm going to look at this is a choice that I'm going to make. And so it is really critical. And I found we can all be negative at times, absolutely. We have our days. And I don't know about you guys, but I struggle with negative people. And I avoid them like the plague. And I know I have my days, don't get me wrong. There's days that I'm probably not pleasant to be around either, but it really is a choice. And so when we look at number 3 there, if we make the right choice, ultimately, our attitude can turn a lot of our problems into blessings in our life, just by how we view things. I know one of the things that I started doing at the beginning of this year was I wanted to focus every day on something I was grateful for. And I think about it first thing in the morning. As soon as I wake up, before I ever get out of the bed, okay, what am I grateful for from the day before, right? What happened that I can be thankful for? And what I found is it has totally changed my perspective on the things that are happening around me. It's helped me to be more appreciative of things, and it's definitely helped my attitude and my outlook on things, because it forces me to identify, a moment in time that I can say, that's awesome that happened. And if you are a spiritual person and you want to call that, well, I do that in my prayer life, great. Maybe you have a gratitude journal and you want to jot it down there, great. But I know for me, it's just taking that quiet time to really think. And I found what a great way to start my day off. And there are days where it's like, oh my gosh, I got to pop out of bed. I got to get right to a client or something like that. And I miss that time. And I realize later in the day, my day's not going so great because I didn't set my intention for the day. It's been an amazingly powerful, simple 5-minute exercise for me every day. And whether it doesn't matter what time of the day you do it. Some people say they do it at the end of the day. For me, it works first thing in the morning. But so what we're saying here with that third one is that the problems don't go away. It's just how we view them. Some people, they'll say, oh, I'm so busy and I got to do this and I got to do that. And my response is always, well, isn't that better than the alternative? I mean, I know we can be overworked. I don't mean to make light of that. I think I'd take overworked out of no work. So again, it's all in how we view things. And so I love this next quote here. The major difference between successful and unsuccessful people is how they think. I mean, that's pretty obvious. I've heard too, and I've tried to do this myself, but I think this is pretty cool and it helps with attitude, is Do you ever find yourself saying, I have to ... I have to take the kids to band practice. I have to go get donuts for the office. I have to run these errands. And maybe you guys know where I'm going with this, but if you change it to sign's on, I get to take my kids to band practice. I get to go get donuts. I get to do these things. It's one word, and yet what an amazing difference how it sounds. Like it's a privilege that you have the opportunity to do these things, right? And that can spin our attitude on a dime, because having to do something almost makes it sound like I'm being forced to do it. There's some other entity, some person is forcing me into doing this. But if I get to do something, it's a choice. And it's one I'm making freely, and it almost sounds like one I'm looking forward to doing, yet it's the exact same activity. So, without getting too zen here, if we come back to attitude's a choice. And it really is how we view things. I mean, if you ever watch inspirational stories and you find these people, their lives have just been one hardship after another, and you wonder, man, in what past life did they do something crazy that they're being punished like this for? And yet they're such positive people. The sun is always shining in things. And then you can read about people who seem to be outwardly so successful, and they're so darn miserable. And you just wonder, right? It all comes down to how they're viewing the world. That really determines truly how happy they are. So let's take a look at a few questions here. And I want to talk about some of these thought provokers here on the next page. So there's an attitude inventory that digs into your answers from the attitude inventory. So that's the next part of your homework. Okay, so take the inventory and then answer these questions. But let's talk about some of these thought provokers here. So when we opened up, I asked her, or just a little bit ago, I asked you to think about someone you really enjoy being around. Someone want to tell me some traits of that person that make you want to be around them? But you don't have to tell us who it is, but just tell us some traits.
They're funny.
Funny. Okay, so someone who can make a situation lighthearted at the appropriate time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Positive.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead, Sonia.
Well, for me, I find that the people I most enjoy being my mentors, were people that were able to make me feel good about myself and give me a lot of confidence to move on to the next thing. So there were people that inspired me and gave me self-confidence, built up my self-confidence.
That's huge, right? And I'm glad you acknowledged that, because a lot of times when people mention that, it sounds almost like selfishness, right? Like, I'm going to go hang with this person because they make me feel really good. Okay, but isn't that a relationship? 2, 3, 4 people, whatever, that hang out because they make each other feel good. Hopefully you're not in a destructive relationship that someone's pulling you down, right? But so there's nothing wrong with saying, yeah, I hang out with this person because they make me feel good. And in your case, they're building you up. That's awesome. Robin?
I said positive, positive outlook, always moving forward, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Sure. The old I'm making lemonade out of lemons, right?
Absolutely.
Or margaritas out of limes. So whichever you want to look at there. But Christina,
5 o'clock somewhere, Ed.
It is somewhere. Europe right now, right? So
one of the things that Tina added in the chat, I think we've talked about joyful and a great sense of humor, but also kindness.
Yes, kindness. That's excellent. Thank you, Tina. Yeah, I mean, I think about kindness, and for me, I have a hard time. One of the things I know that I struggle with is accepting compliments, and kind people give compliments, right? And sometimes we want to just deflect it. Oh, I'm not really that good. Oh, this old shirt, we want to blow it off. And yet it's almost, when we do that, it's almost like rejecting a gift. And I think it's maybe for some of us who are here in central Pennsylvania, it's a Lancaster County humility thing, but it really is something that we need to learn to accept other people's kindness.
Eddie, can I, just if I can add to that, I was the same way, and it was very uncomfortable to receive any kind of kudos. And I had a boss who, anytime I tried to downplay any kind of kudos, would look at me and say, Sonia, the appropriate response is thank you.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Absolutely.
all you have to say. You don't have to justify anything. And so every time I hear someone say that, like, oh, this, I got this at Ross for $10. It's like, no, the appropriate response is thank you. That's stuck in my brain forever.
And good for you for finding a deal on such an awesome shirt, right? I mean, right? Turn the compliment right back around at him. But yeah, I mean, kindness. Tina, that's so insightful. Thank you. Unhealthy relationships are built on almost really a complete lack of kindness, right? And so when you think about the people that you probably care about the most and that make you feel good, they are people that are kind. They're the person who, you meet for coffee every week or whatever, and every now and then they pick the coffee up, or they buy you a donut to go with your coffee or whatever. And so, why do we do that? Because there's a level of respect there, and there's the mutual reciprocation of, hey, we're in this together, we're investing in this relationship, and that's a reflection of attitude. And so here's something I'd like you to think about on the side too. This is like an extra credit homework assignment. Since Sonia brought this up, so it's all Sonia's fault class. If you get this extra work, you know where to find her. Ask yourself, what parts of you are difficult to accept? Because those they're part of who or what makes us us, right? So they're a valuable part of us. And even if it's a weakness that we're working on, and of course we all have them, what's your attitude toward those things, whether they're faults or things about yourself you want to improve, whatever you want to call it? Take some time to reflect on that, and what's your attitude towards those things, and how does that impact kind of your view of the world around you? That would be a really good exercise to add on here. So it all started out with Tina. We can lay some blame at her too. But yeah, do that a little bit of extra credit. I think that would be really important. Now, when you think about these people that you hang out with that make you feel good and they're kind and the whole bit, do they have influence over you? And if so, why do they have influence over you? Go ahead, Sonia.
I think for me, they do exert influence, but it's not because they're telling me to do something, not something they're doing. It's more because I do respect these people. I want to make sure I don't let them down. So I feel obliged. I feel a sense of responsibility to make sure I don't let them down.
Interesting. One of my favorite managers to work for, you didn't want to let him down. What was interesting, he was probably I don't know, only about 6-7 years older than me, but there was this, when you messed up, he had a way of saying, sitting you down and saying, okay, here's what we've got to do, here's we got to fix it, I want to understand why you made that decision. There was all that great mentoring, but there was almost this undertone of, you really let me down, and it wasn't in a mean way. It was very much motivating for me, because I didn't want to let him down, because I liked the guy. He was he was a wonderful mentor. That's an interesting insight. Someone else? That person has some good influence on you? Okay, think on that one. Now, let me ask you this. Let's say you're sitting here thinking, yeah, I do have to work on my attitude, especially like in the workplace. How do we change our attitude? What's the key there?
Oh, yeah, sorry, I'm kind of monopolizing. I don't mean to, but this is a good topic. And it's a struggle I've had my whole life, you know, and so I think part of it is, how do you succeed at overcoming those? You just don't give up. You're going to have good days and bad days when you're proud of yourself, and other days where like, that's not what I wanted to do. And I think for me, you know, it's always, for me, my weakness, you know, we were talking about, I have a bad habit of always comparing myself, not to make myself feel better. It's opposite. I compare myself and go, why can't I be more like this person? How come I can't be smarter? How come I can't use my 24 hours the way Jeff Bezos does? Or, you know, we all have the same amount of time. And so I'm constantly comparing myself, and as a result, don't feel always good about what I'm doing. And then I have to kind of slap myself, metaphorically, not really, and say, I am good enough, and here's what I've been able to accomplish, and here's where I came from. And it's not, you know, it's about moving forward. And so I have had to learn to be very forgiving of myself and patient, and say, if I didn't have a good day, tomorrow's a new start.
Yeah, it's huge. And I see a lot of heads nodding. We all are looking at the Joneses, right? You know, what are the Joneses doing? And it's not just about keeping up with the Joneses, but, you know, that view that there's other people who have it better than us or easier than us or whatever. And obviously we're all seasoned enough as adults that we know everyone's got their challenges, and everyone has, you know, their hardships, if you will. Everyone has their successes. And if there's people looking at us saying the same things that we're saying about other people, right? I mean, we have to know this because they are. And so it really does, to your point, Sonia, it really does, our ability to change our attitude is tied entirely to our ability to change. Can we change our outlook? Can we change how we react to things? Can we make that choice? Can we take that 30 seconds and say, okay, I'm going to bang my head on the desk, I'm going to get it all out, and then I'm going to refocus? Or do we stay in our rut, woe is me, I stink, this is horrible, I have to do this, you know, and be in that humdrum kind of mode, right? So when we think about it, here's sort of the outline for that change to happen. So first, ask yourself how you're feeling. Like, identify the feeling that's connected to the attitude. Is it hurt or frustration or anger or whatever it is? Now, do not beat yourself up for the feeling that you're having. Do not. I know I sound probably like a counselor now. Like, gosh, but don't beat yourself over your feelings. Okay, we're allowed to have our feelings, and we're allowed to respect our feelings, provided they're not hurtful to other people or ourselves, right? But what then we have to do is say, okay, is that feeling causing a bad behavior, right? So am I mad? Well, I'm okay. It's okay that I'm mad, but it's not okay that I start slamming doors and, you know, yelling at people and that kind of stuff, right? So is there a problem behavior that I have to say, okay, I need to focus on this to make my change? How about, and Sonia, you alluded to this a little bit ago, is there any problem thinking? Do you have, I like to call them the little saboteur. So for ladies, maybe you have a female saboteur, but mine's a dude. He hangs out sometimes, right? And he whispers in my ear, telling me all the things that I can't do or I'm not good enough for, right? And so some of us have a bigger saboteur than others, okay? But how often do we listen to that little gremlin that sits there, telling us we're not good enough, we're not capable, we're not whatever, right? Because that's going to impact our attitude. And I remember talking this over with a friend one time, and we were just, it was two guys sitting there, we were having a beer and just kind of free flowing. And I was telling him about this, and he said, Ed, okay, so give me an example. So I gave him an example. Now I've known this guy for many years, and he looks at me and he says, Ed, what in the outside world is telling you that? And I said, honestly, nothing. He says, then smack the thing and get it off your shoulder, right? And you know, yeah, it's just two guys sitting there having a chat. But this is like when we were talking about who's an influencer, who's somebody like to hang out with, and this guy is kind of my person. And it was so insightful to say, exactly, like I'm allowing this self-talk that's deprecating and it's impacting my attitude and it's sort of bringing me down when there is absolutely zero in the outside world that's giving me hard evidence that any of that stuff is true. And so, can we clarify what the truth really is? Can we get our feelings out of it and try to look at things analytically to find out what the truth really is about the situation? Because that's going to really affect our attitude change. Then once we know the truth, what's the biggest thing you have to do? It's the biggest thing any of us have to do when it comes to change.
The pain of staying the same is now more than the pain of changing.
Ah, okay. So, right. So if I stay the same, I'm miserable. Now it's going to be miserable to change, but maybe once I get over here, it's going to be a lot better. So there is that, right? So in order to endure the pain of the change, what do you have to be?
Willing and motivated.
Yes, committed to making the change. It's no different than if you said, oh, I want to drop a couple pounds. And as soon as you eat that next brownie 4 weeks into it, oh, it's all done, it's over with, I blew my diet. Oh, come on, you ate a brownie, you know? Or, you know, I'm going to the gym every day, and the one day you got a bit of a head cold, you don't go to the gym. Oh, it's not worth it. Now I'm never going to have six-pack abs because I missed the gym one day. So what, right? It's all about the commitment to making the change. And so when it comes to our attitude, it's a lot harder than sticking to a diet or whatever, because it's the mental aspects of all of it that are the biggest challenge. But the commitment is huge, right? And so as you're going through those homework questions, think about the commitment that you are willing to make. Forget about need to make. What are you willing to do, right? And don't try and bite off too much. If you know there are a couple parts of your attitude that you know you want to work on, just work on one of them. You know, pick the one you think is the lowest hanging fruit or the most important one, whichever you decide, but just pick on one aspect of it and feel that success of change before you go on to the next one. And honestly, if I were in your shoes and getting this homework, I would look at it through the lens and say, okay, is my attitude affecting someone that I really care about? I got to fix that first, right? So, but anyway, that's my 2 cents on the attitude piece. So when we think about, I want to come back to another thought provoker question here. How do you initially react when you're faced with a challenge? Because what I've just done is challenged you. So how do you initially react when you're faced with a challenge? It's something that you know is going to be maybe a bit of an uphill climb.
For me, my maybe over the years I've developed this because I was very reactionary, and it was hard for me not to wear my heart on my sleeve. And so so sometimes if I had a question about something that I didn't think was going to work, I would verbalize it that way, and I would come off as like somebody who could be negative or like, you know. So I've learned, and it's actually been very effective for me. When something comes up, I have my poker face, and it's like, oh, that's interesting. Let me think about it, and I'll get back to you. Because I know for me, I'm one of those people who is it one personality or the other? I'm sort of a blend of different things. And so I tend to look at it one way and then I look at it another way and my perspective. So I've learned for me, I need to give myself time to think about how I'm going to respond.
You know, that stepping back from it, letting emotions die down so we can think clearly. That's great. Sandy, I think you were going to ring in.
Yes, and because Sonia, it's a wise thing that we learned through the years. Another self-reflection is exasperation is my first response for the challenge. And I'm thinking to myself, are you kidding me? I can't handle one more thing. Are you kidding me? My plate's already full, or I can't do this right now. I have to get that out. So I poker face and I look and I go, you know what? Let me think about that for a minute, because I'm sure I've had this challenge before. And let me just, hey, I've got to go ahead and pop on a call, which buys me, you know, the freedom. And that's a pretty good answer to respond that I need a minute. And then I've recognized in myself, I have to come into my office to the back of my door, go, are you kidding me? I can't believe I don't have, but I get it out, and then I don't have to bury it or in some way fake through it. I've gotten it out. I've expressed my anger, my frustration, my fatigue, and then I can focus on the problem. But I've just learned that people are like, oh, let it go, or, you know, swallow it, you know, swallow your anger. I can't do that personally, but if I can excise it, I can take a walk, or I can go to the coffee pot, or I can go to the bathroom and be in the stall just to go, ah, it's done, it's gone, and then I can actually strategically think about how to.
Yeah, absolutely. Tina put in the chat box here, says, if I'm able, I like to write things down and give it thought over the course of several days. There is something about the physical piece of writing something down and looking at it to take the emotion out of it. Because then you look at it and you say, I was fired up about that. What? Thank you, Tina. Absolutely. Great, great insight there. Melody, you have something?
Yeah, I was just going to add, I recently heard a quote and it really resonated with me, and I've really tried to use it just in these kinds of situations, because I am just like all of these ladies saying and handling the situations. But the speaker said that pain is real, but suffering is optional. And so that really resonated with me. So I've really tried to step back and think, okay, the pain is the challenge, just like Sandy said, oh my gosh, how am I going to add that to everything I'm trying to do? And then it's all in, how am I going to react to this? And so just all of these things we've said, but I've even got it on a sticky note on my computer here, because it's like, calm down, think about this, and how am I going to react? So I just share that with the group as a quick little tidbit to think about.
Here's something that I keep. So I have 3 questions that I like to ask myself when I'm faced with something. How can I ... When can I fill in the dots? And what is the most efficient way? And you can see this, I mean, this note, it's all beat up. It's been sitting on my desk. And I mean, it's no longer a white note card anymore. But it sits here right behind my pen holder. And those 3 questions, you know, I find help me when I'm really stressing over something. And it's just chewing away in my head, and I know I need to step away. And I look at myself and say, okay, well, how can I get this done? And what is the best way to make it happen? And it just, there's something calming about those 3 questions for me now. I mean, they've been sitting here for, I bet, 5-6 years on my, you know, on my desk, and it's been huge for me. Mark, you want to ring in?
Oh, no, just kind of reinforcing what other folks were saying as well. I find that, and those of you I've worked with, I think people get frustrated sometimes when I say, oh, that's interesting. And I think people go, this guy must be nuts. But I really try to, if I'm faced with a challenge, I try as much as I can to, when I'm faced with a problem, if you will, to try to see it as a challenge. And it's like, okay, this is a puzzle. You know, this is going to be fun to figure this out. Sometimes, you know, I have to repeat that to myself several times. It's not necessarily intuitive, because I do put people unmute and step out of the room and, you know, bang my head on the wall and then come back in and go, oh yeah, okay, yeah. Let's take a look at that formula again.
So
if I can add to Melody's, I'll share the Post-it note that's in front of me. I listen to a lot of podcasts, and this
Okay.
struck me. How you see people is actually how you see yourself. And what you think people think of you is actually what you think of yourself.
Very true.
Yeah. So that just helps me reframe.
Self-talk. Yep.
Yeah.
Would you, Sandy, would you post that into the chat room for folks?
Absolutely.
Thank you. So I think that as you embark upon this thought process in the next month in evaluating your attitude and your outlook on things, I want you to stay focused on what would changing that outlook toward that person or that thing do for you? Because that's the what's in it for me that we all need to drive forward with anything. So what is in it for you to make that change? You know, what would it get you? Will it get you something? And not in a selfish way, but, you know, will it get you peace of mind? Will it solidify that relationship? Will it get you a better night's sleep? I mean, what is it that it will do for you if you focus on this for a month? Because the reality is that our attitudes, and it ties so nicely into what Sandy just said, our attitudes are really nothing more than a reflection of our thought patterns and our thought habits. And that self-talk, and I forget who said it, but someone said, be careful what you say to yourself because you're always listening, right? Christina, you know who said that? There was one that I think was the first month. I had a quote and I couldn't remember, and Christina dropped me a note later in the day. She's like, so-and-so said, yes.
I don't know that one, Ed, sorry.
But it is a great one. We are always listening to ourselves. And so we do have to be careful what we tell ourselves. And because we start to believe it, unfortunately. And then that's where our attitude goes. And so to kind of pull this all together as we're hitting the 2 o'clock mark, we can't be the leader that our people need if we don't manage ourselves well, which in part is how we manage our attitude. And again, it's not about always being positive, rah, the whole bit. It's about how do we manage it in such a way that our people still recognize that we are not one of these leaders that blows hot and cold. Like we never know what we're getting from her because one day she comes in and she's a tyrant and the next day she's bringing cookies. Like, oh, what are we getting today? That's really the danger of an attitude problem is we start to isolate the people that we rely on the most in the workplace. And they may still deliver results for us if they are committed to the company, but we may not be fostering as cohesive of a team as we need to if we can't get their commitment because they're looking at us wondering, you know, what's up with them.
And
So,
brilliant, Ed, that's exactly where you started, which is talking about our mentors. They had a great attitude. They believed in us. They thought more of us than we thought we were capable of. So it's interesting that that's exactly what the first question is you asked us, is what they saw in us, now we need to do for others.
there's a method to the madness.
I'm just saying you're brilliant. I thought you'd want to know that.
Yeah. It's, you know, and I think that if you're sitting there and you're thinking, gosh, I don't have what it takes to be a mentor, I would disagree. None of you got to be the head of HR in your organizations if you didn't have skills and talent and insights. And, you know, one of the best things that they say, if you really want to learn something, teach it, right? And so, you know, if you have someone that you are currently, maybe you're not identified as their mentor, I bet there are people that you are guiding, whether it's like Melody said, you know, it's that HR admin who's coming up through the ranks, or maybe it's a line supervisor out on the floor for you, you know, whatever it is, it's just someone who comes to you for support and guidance. Well, then you're being a mentor. And give yourself credit. To Sonia's point, say, yes, I am a mentor, doggone it, and I'm a good one, right? And so allow yourself to think about attitude and perspective over this next month. This is going to be a powerful month in this leadership journey for you. So you've got some homework with the attitude inventory, and then the follow-up questions to the attitude inventory. And then, of course, you've got the thought provokers. We talked through one or two of them, but again, give yourself some time to do that. Maybe just take one a day or something, or whatever, one every couple of days, and really focus on it and think about it. Next month, we're going to talk leadership. We're going to pull these first three things together and see how it helps us to mold our leadership. So that's July. And then, of course, August, we're going to have a really nice CEO roundtable panel that we're going to talk about CEO expectations of their HR people being leaders. So we're just over halfway through now. Are there any questions or things that I can do for anyone?
I just wanted to say thank you. This was I don't know why this session felt a lot more therapeutic than the others, but I appreciate it.
But there is a couch in my office, so, you know.
I was wondering, where do I send the check?
I'll get the notebook out and I'll say, well, how do you feel about that?
Right, yeah, and I wanted to join in. You guys had all these quotes, and there's someone that I looked to. She's a little tough sometimes. I actually sought her out personally, and she's very tough, but there's a doctor, her name is Dr. Pat Allen. And Dr. Pat Allen has so she's always, you know, trying to teach you out of your own way, in a way, right? Not to get in your own way. And so she has this sort of a pledge, you know, that she has everyone do. And it's long, it's not super long, but it says, beware of your thoughts, for they become your words. Beware of your words, for they become your actions. Beware of your actions, for they become your habits. Beware of your habits, for they become your character. And beware of your character, for it becomes your destiny. So how all these things are connected. And so I've always, you know, I've kind of adopted that in the last 7 years when I became introduced to her. And, you know, it's just, we're always going to have good days and bad days. So I think we just have to remind ourselves, to your point, Ed, we are good enough, and tomorrow's another day, and you're going to have a good, you know, a good day. Don't let it, you know, keep you sunk.
That pencil holder that little note card sits behind, you probably can't. Let me see if I can get it up here.
Oh, how funny. Yep.
It is Essence of Destiny. I look at it every day.
Yep.
So, because it is true, what's in here starts to sink in, comes out the mouth, and that's always not a good thing. So,
thank you very much.
I know we're a couple minutes past, and I want to respect your time. Thank you all for having cameras on and engaging and smiling back at me. It's so wonderful to actually feel like we're kind of in a room together making things happen. So enjoy the first month of summer. Though those of us here in Pennsylvania, it's not too summery outside today, but by the next time we get together, it will be summertime. So thank you all. If you need something in the next month, feel free to reach out.
Thank you, Ed.
Thanks, everyone.